The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're gonna love it.
Okay, let's go.
So, I mean, I think a lot of people, obviously, the USS Liberty is on the map now. And obviously, we'll talk about one of your shipmates, Phil Turney, and his episode on Candace Owens and all that. But all right, listen, everybody, we are in for another great episode today. And what I personally am so looking forward to with Moe Shafer. Moe was also on the USS Liberty, June 8th, 1967. He was shipmates with Phil Turney. I think you guys remember Phil. I had him on the podcast a couple months ago. He's been on Candace. He's been on other places. But today is really great for us because Moe was on the same exact ship, but in a totally different area, totally different role, and his experience was completely different. And I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating to experience June 8th, 1967, now from Moe's perspectives. Hey man, I am so appreciative of you taking the time, and welcome to the Deep Shallow Dive.
Well, thank you, Ray. I'm very honored to be a part of your show and very honored to be a part of my other crewmates out there who I served with and who I've certainly stayed in touch with for the past 58 years. But my name is Moe Shafer. I was a third-class petty officer, CT, as a communications technician. The simple definition today is a spook or a spy, because I can say that after I was let down by my country, but served with Phil, who was in the other parts of the shipmates who ran the ship. And then we had our security spaces to where we found out a lot of stuff going on in the world, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I grew up in West Virginia, had some issues in my home life. So what alternatives are there back and then? It was the military. And I asked my mother to save the day at home to go enlist me in the military and get me out of that environment, which was not healthy.
Yeah.
And from that time on, I went in the Navy, and then you are tested and selected for what you're going to do. And I didn't know that I had the brain power or whatever, being a good old West Virginia boy, that I was selected to go in to the Naval Security Group to become a part of the very sophisticated spy network of the military, which is not going out and shoot 'em up, bang, bang people or whatever. It's doing what it takes to protect the United States of America and try to get a front end idea of what's going on. And then our information provided all the information that NSA or whoever needed to move forward with whatever we had intercepted.
Wow. How old were you at that time? Were you 18, 19?
At that time, I was 18 years old. Correct. Yeah.
That's amazing. And then let me ask you this. What made you decide on the Navy? You know, you joined the military, and back then, you know, I guess what guided you to the Navy versus the Army or the Marines or the Air Force?
I guess I had a brother who was 11 months older than me, and he chose to join the Navy, and he was actually on a Saratoga aircraft carrier. He had died the year before my attack in January of 1966 through an accident, but he was on the Saratoga, which you'll hear about later. He joined the Navy, and I said, well, I got to follow my brother.
Yeah.
And so we did different things in there, but yet that's what happened. Just quickly, interesting story, because my older brother, a little shorter than me, so I used to kick his ass. He went in and enlisted like I did, but he was one of there were 5,000 and some on the Saratoga, the only one accepted to the Naval Academy. And he was on his leave before he went to Annapolis to the Naval Academy when he was killed.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, God bless my brother.
Yeah, God bless your brother. He was killed at the Naval Academy or killed in battle?
No, he was in an accident going to the base and was killed by a vehicle. So
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry to hear that. You know what's interesting? I have an older brother who's also shorter than me. I don't know if I could kick his ass. Maybe I could. But I followed in his footsteps as well. But that was to the same high school and the same college. So I have to thank my brother Bob for maybe not going into the military, because I probably would have followed in his footsteps there as well. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you really went down the Navy path, a lot to do with your brother. And then was the USS Liberty your first first assignment, or did you
No,
have other?
no, I went to Pensacola to the school where we were trained to do what we did.
Yeah.
And then I was assigned. Well, I joined the Navy thinking I'd be on a ship the whole time. Why would you join the Navy and not expect to go to sea? But I went to Bremerhaven, Germany for 2 years. And guess where Bremerhaven, Germany was near? Okay, I was right there on the North Sea at the very top of the country. Who's out there in the North Sea? What country is up the road from there? It was Russia.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And so that was my first experience for 2 years of doing my job. And I'll just leave it to that. I've already told you what my background was. So
Yeah.
they were there, and that's what we were doing.
Okay.
And
Got it.
then after 2 years, they kind of said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "Well, I joined the Navy to go on a ship." And the Naval Communications Group had 5 ships on the seas. That's at that time, that all were the highly classified spy ships. And I was selected to go on the Liberty, and with no idea what was ahead. And I was sent there, and I was on. I guess I was on there a little over a year and a half before the attack.
Wow.
But
Okay. Okay.
but I was on my second major cruise on the ship, so I was kind of seaworthy by then.
Got it. Got it. Before we get to the attack, let's talk about that year and a half. Like, what do you guys do on that ship, or what did you do on that ship? What was an average day for that year and a half before June
So
1867?
that's interesting you asked, because we worked on shifts. So to do my job, okay, to be in my spaces, which was down below water in a very sophisticated space, you had to have keyed in doors, so only the highest crypto top secret clearance people could get in there. Okay, nobody else in the ship had access to any of that. And it was so private, they thought, we told them we had a swimming pool, we told them we had a bowling alley, we told them, we had everything down there, a pool hall, and that's why they weren't allowed in. So that
Yeah.
just made everybody else on the ship mad at us.
Yeah.
But that was our very secure space. So in that 8 on, 8 off, 8 on, 8 off, 8 on, then we got 56 hours off, which is technically 2.5 days. And what did we do? We spent time working on equipment on our ship, doing things that we were asked to do to clean up and so forth in our spaces or whatever. But we weren't part of the crew that chipped paint or painted the ship or did anything. We had a very sophisticated communications basket on the back of the ship. You've seen the pictures of the ship, and there's this huge antenna that looked like the old movie antennas in your backyard when you
Yeah.
were trying to get satellite TV in the beginning, these huge dishes. And that dish was there to beam at moons. When the moon was visible, we could beam off of that to moon to NSA in Washington, D.C., and that's when we would get our crypto information to them. So think about 1967, how sophisticated that was.
That's amazing.
Today you
That's
have all the
amazing.
satellites up there. We beamed off the moon. That was the thing we used to bounce the signals off of, and to get back to them. So
That's incredible. Okay, well,
yes.
I'm gonna make a mental note, because obviously that plays into what happened on June 8th and the attempt to communicating. This is interesting for you. When I interviewed Phil, I really didn't know that much about the story. I had watched him on Candace Owens, but now, man, the Liberty has gotten so much more attention and so much more notoriety. And I personally am so much more well versed. This is going to be great to get it from your perspective. Okay, a year and a half, we get it. You're kind of doing the daily thing. You guys, people don't realize it was a spy ship. Like, when you say that, were you guys trying to gather intelligence on what other countries were doing? Were you trying to intercept signals? What was that about?
I would say the answer is D, all the above.
All the above. Okay, interesting.
And we were so classified that we ran alone. We never had escorts with us or
Okay.
anything. We ran by ourselves. I guess technically we could always be in harm's way because we were easy to identify, because you have a ship that's out there and it has these antennas on it and all these things, the big mast that goes up and then the arms that go out on the ship, and on all those arms were sophisticated antennas, sophisticated equipment out there that turned out to be what the Israelis honed in on before they attacked us. And once I get into the story of my story of the attack, I'll tell that.
Okay, okay, okay.
And
And then
it
let
was
me
a,
ask you
yeah.
this. Are there other ships out at sea like that? Like, did other countries have spy ships remotely as sophisticated as this? Or was the
No,
United States so far ahead? I guess really, I mean, that was the Soviet Union. That was like the beginnings of the Cold War, I'm thinking, right?
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And of course, this was after World War II, after Korea, all that. So this was the beginning of the Cold War time. And that's when everything kind of changed the way the Naval Security Group, NSA, went out to the world to gather information and whatever they did. And they put 5 of our ships out there. I'll name one of them because it's a very public issue also, was the USS Pueblo that
Okay.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
captured by the North Koreans in January of 1968. Had 82 crew members. One crew member was killed, and 81 of them were tortured for 10 months by North Korea. Okay, and were let go. The ship is on a trophy over in North Korea that they took. They did get all the codes and all the stuff from NSA. So the NSA had to redo all the codes for the whole world because North Korea captured those codes. And that's how sophisticated what we did is. Today, after the Liberty, and it was certainly mothballed and sold off to Schick as razor blades, but that metal's good for something, you
Yeah.
know. Anyway, the communications technician category still exists. It still goes on today, but it's all broken down into to other ships. In other words, cruisers, destroyers, aircraft carriers all have a small segment of their ship where there might be 4 or 5 people attached to the Naval Security Group who do what we did, but it's invisible, so to speak,
Got it.
for as visible as we were out there as a target.
That's crazy. And then are you guys just sailing around the ocean, or you're not anchored to the bottom, right?
No,
You're
we're always
actually moving.
on the ship. We were working the west coast of Africa. So the Pueblo was working around Korea and all that area. So each ship had a different part of the world to go to. So we worked down from like Senegal down to Cape Town in that area, and we worked to Angola, the Ivory Coast. So we would be out from there along the Congo River, and let's say we could see the land. We were probably 13, 15 miles off in international waters. 3 miles is the international water line, but doing our job. And then once a month, we'd pull into port into a Dakar, Senegal, or into Angola, and places where you got off the ship for our Liberty, they'd give us a day or two to get off and relax or whatever. And it's hard to relax when every person you pass in those countries has machine guns on their shoulders and whatever, because they were all at war with each other, probably still are today. They're
Yeah.
always in some type of fight or whatever of control. And so that's how we lived. And so we got pretty reckless. If you give me 2 days off the ship and I've been on there 30, I'm ready to cut loose. You know what I'm saying?
I bet, I bet. Plus, you guys are like, this is something interesting, and I think maybe you and I spoke about this in one of our conversations leading up to this. I'm interviewing you right now, and you're a distinguished 60, 70 something year old gentleman, right?
Late 70s.
Late 70s. Okay. Well, hey, you're doing good. I'm knocking on wood.
Thank you.
What people don't realize is when you and Phil and everyone else went through this, you guys were 18, 19, 20. You were like young bucks, probably
Yes.
young stallions. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that's pretty wild. So yeah, when you got to land for a couple days, you guys probably, I mean, it's like what I did when I was 18. Like,
Yeah.
that's pretty crazy.
Well, the guys like Phil, I didn't want to run up against in the back room because he would have kicked my ass.
Yeah, yeah,
Plus,
absolutely.
they already didn't like us because we had these clearances and all that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And you guys were it's funny, you hear the term spook. I know you guys
Yeah.
call each other that. I mean, that's kind of like a derogatory word, but that kind of means spy.
Yes,
Okay, interesting.
it does.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, all right. So Man, that's pretty fast. Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you? So the 6-Day War was going on, and that was, I believe, between Israel and Egypt and some of the Arab nations at that time. Leading up to June 8th, did you guys know this 6-Day War was happening, or did you guys know this was taking place?
We did not. In other words, we weren't privy to the outside world news. There weren't CNNs, there weren't Fox Newses, there weren't any of these type of things that broadcast. We were in the Ivory Coast in a city called Abidjan, and the captain said, all crew back to the ship, brought us all back at 2 a.m. in the morning, and says, we're sailing out in the morning. You can't notify your parents. You can't do anything and tell anybody where we're going. We're not going to tell you where we're going right now. But then when we got in our spaces, our private security spaces, we were told we were heading into the Mediterranean. But I couldn't tell Phil that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So he didn't have the need to know because he didn't have a clearance.
Gotcha.
Okay.
How
So
many guys were on that ship? Do you remember?
294.
Okay. And did you know everybody? Did everybody know each other?
No, we didn't. I mean, I knew who Phil was. I knew whatever. The best relationships I've built are since then of the people who come together and have our reunions and different things that we do. So the
Gotcha.
relationships have expanded dramatically with those interested over the years.
Got
And
it.
every year we seem to find somebody who's never attended a reunion or whatever. And it's just unbelievable because the fellowship is so profound and
That's
the pain
amazing.
people have lived through is so profound over that many years.
The pain you guys have lived through, and I want to get to that in a little bit. It's just unbelievable. And to be honest, I'm so glad. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I'm so glad the USS Liberty story is getting to the forefront now because you guys, more than anything, you guys deserve to be heard and you guys deserve for the American people to understand the truth. But okay, before we get that, all right, let's get to June 8th, 1967. What do you
Well,
remember?
June 8th, 1967, I told you we'd left Abidjan. We were heading into the Mediterranean and wasn't sure what was going on. Some of us knew there was a battle going on between Egypt and Israel, and our destination was to go into the Sinai Peninsula and find out who started this thing, who was doing what, everything. And we had all the equipment to do that. Whether it's Egypt, whether it's Israel, it doesn't matter. We could pick up anything we wanted to pick up. What's interesting is we could pick up all that 100 miles away, 200 miles away, or 12 miles away. But we went into the Sinai Peninsula and we arrived there on June the 7th. And we were told to be on alert that anything could happen. We asked for a military escort, a destroyer. We asked the Sixth Fleet, Admiral Martin, as a matter of fact, who was the commandant of the Sixth Fleet, for a ship, and he refused it. He would not give us any protection, whatever. So we went right into harm's way. We pulled
Was
in.
that strange? Was that strange? I mean, hindsight's 2020, obviously, but
How
like
do I
at the
know?
time, did that register with anybody that like, hey, why are we not getting protection?
It wouldn't register with me because what did that mean?
Yeah,
In other words, I'm 20 at this time, but still, I mean, I'm
insane.
good at what I do, doing my work and so forth. But I just don't know what to expect. I don't know what to come as an attack, but I don't know how to get ready for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're there. And so we're just doing our regular jobs. Everybody seems comfortable. If you wanted to go up the top side and throw a fish line over the side of the ship and fish, because we're kind of sitting still or cruising very slow or sunbathe or whatever. Then the morning of June the 8th, my buddy Jimmy and I were asked to go out and work on cleaning because we were off of our duty from down underneath that day. So we were on this big Trescom, it was called, this big basket, crater basket on the back of the ship that sent all the messages off because it was so sophisticated and so tedious. We had to clean it with toothbrushes and whatever. So, I mean, it was definitely a sophisticated piece of equipment. Now that means we're elevated 50 feet or so in the air and we're up in that basket. So let me see, I'm closest to the top to see what's going on out in this absolute spectacular day. I call it the cloud locker. A cloud locker takes all the clouds and puts them in the locker and doesn't let them out that day. And the sky is perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
The sun is beautiful. It's everything. And then these boxcar planes, a couple of them, start flying around us, circling, and they had the Star of David on them. That's kind of a comfort zone for you to say, okay, they're out there. We know who they are,
Yeah.
and they're our number one ally on Earth.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
Let me ask you something because this is interesting. So at that time, 1967, even then, Israel was sort of known as being the number one ally to the United States. You know, you hear now them saying Israel's our greatest ally and all that. Did that have meaning to you in 1967?
no,
So when you saw that Star of David on the planes, it really gave you a feeling of comfort?
probably, well, it did there because we're sitting there watching bombs go off on land. We know this war's been going on a few days. And here we're sitting, this side of the peninsula's got Israel, the other side of the peninsula's got Egypt.
Wow.
Okay. And we're sitting there in the water in between sunbathing. I mean, it's just probably doesn't make sense when you think
Yeah.
about it. But anyway, but they came out and they're circling us and they have cameras hanging out of the side. So they're taking pictures after pictures. They're close enough that, like I'm watching you right now on the screen, that you could see them and wave at them and have a hand communication of waving at each other and so forth. So it's like, wow. And that even makes you, then they did this 5 different times. Now, why I'm setting the stage for this is we had no idea we were going to be attacked. We had zero idea that we'd be attacked, especially when we felt protected by planes flying around with the Star of David. But why are they coming out there 5 times? What are they doing? All those cameras. Well, we can tell you what they were doing. They were photographing every single piece of that ship. Remember I told you the masts had the antennas on them and everything?
Yeah.
Going up the mast, there were big cables going up to connect everything through all the electronics. And they were photographing everything to prepare for that afternoon. And so they were going back to Tel Aviv and going to the war room with Mushy Diane and so forth, and laying all that intelligence out there that they were doing. So they're spying while we're waving at them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Okay.
interesting. They're
And
spying on you guys. I mean,
right.
they're your
Yeah.
greatest ally is spying
It's
on you
not
guys.
intercepting what we're saying. It's looking at what we have on the ship. So that's their target. Okay.
Got it.
And
Wow.
so after that, we came off the basket, went down to lunch, and the captain called a general quarters drill. That is a battle drill we do multiple times out at sea, that everybody has a battle station. So they run to their battle station and lock the ship down and prepare it if it were going to be attacked, to secure the hatches, to secure everything so everybody that's inside is safe or whatever. So we went through one of those practice drills. He came over and says, great job, guys. You all did a good job. You beat the clock, because we always have a clock time trying to get it done and battened down by that time. And then he says,
And again, by the way, doing a drill like that and doing a practice drill like that, that's normal, right? Like,
that's very normal, but
okay.
probably because we practiced it that day might
Okay.
have helped, because an hour later we got attacked. But anyway, so we had 2 general quarters drills that day. By the way, the second one was real. And you're out there with no guns, no nothing, and it's real. Then Jimmy and I are on our way back up to the basket to go back in the basket and work. And this is at 2:00 p.m. Okay. And there's guys laying on the back of the ship sunbathing. There's everything's going on. I told you it's a gorgeous day. And then I kind of heard like this, and I looked up and I saw a jet fly over my head. And then I saw the postman beside me over there, because I'm standing outside on the decks in the after part of the ship, get hit with a missile, and said, oh my God, what's going on? And then, so the jet came straight onto over the ship, was shooting over the bow, over the bridge of the ship. That's where our captain was, where they strived the ship and so forth. Then to us in the after part of the ship. Then the sunlight was directly on our left, the port side of the ship. Another plane came directly out of the sun so nobody could see it. So that was another surprise of that plane coming in. And that's what they used they used regular bullets and so forth to kill all the people on the surface of on the top of the ship. So anti-personnel weapons, I'll call them. And that's what they used to kill everybody they could see that was out on the ship, or shoot or do whatever. And of course, when that happened, we all jumped in the ship. Now, where am I going to go versus where's Phil going to go? That general drill says you go here, you go here. My general quarter spaces were down in the bottom of the ship where the top security spaces were. So I had to go through the coded doors, go down door, and there were about 45 of us down in those spaces. We had 3 rooms down there, okay, where different talents took places. And then we had another space on the floor above us, which was not underwater. And so we had a very sophisticated part of the ship. And I'm going to say it was probably 40% of the ship. Underneath the water was
Underneath the water. Okay, got it.
our spaces, okay?
Okay.
And so anyway, we go down there. I've already been in the line of fire of the guns. So I go down. I don't know what's happening above.
Like, do you think this is a drill? Like, what are you thinking?
No. I saw the planes come over. They were firing. I saw them strike my friend. I knew somebody was shooting us. So who do you think I thought it was? I thought it was
You thought it was Egypt, right?
Right. And by the way, the 2 jets they attacked us with were French Phantom jets, which are designed to look like Delta Wing MiGs. And they had them all painted black with no markings on them. There was no identity on those jets. So it was a surprise attack, made us believe it was the Arabs attacking us. Okay. And so we're under attack. And then to add on to this story, we had a crewman, a radioman named Terry Harbardier, who got one of the highest. He didn't get the Medal of Honor, but I think he got the Navy Cross or whatever. But we had been wiped out. I told you all those antennas on the ship. The first strafe of those planes, those 2 planes, took out every single antenna on our ship. If there were 10 cables going up a mast post, okay, they shot holes through, cannon holes through the masts. Not only did they hit every antenna, they hit other. So they wiped out every piece of communication in the first strafe of the jets. So
and let me ask you this. Let me try to connect these dots. So on June 7th, when they flew by taking all those pictures,
that was 8th. That was the 8th that morning.
Okay. But they had a layout of where everything was. So now when they're attacking, the first line was to take out all your communication devices and the antennas so you couldn't call for help.
And that happened. They definitely shut down our ship completely. And this Terry Halbardier went out in harm's way there on the side where they napalmed and everything and hand fixed an antenna to where we got one message out. And I don't know what all the terminology is, Rockstar, whatever, but it was simply a message out. We're under attack, believed to be Arabs. We said, we believed to be Arabs. Who else would you think it was?
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Right? And so then we got one message back, and this is all it said. And this will come up in the story, okay? Help is on the way. That's all we got back. Silence from that point on, okay? For close to 20 hours. The last thing we had heard is help is on the way.
Help is on the way. And again, that's an audio. That's somebody on the other end audio said over the radio. Okay. This isn't like some type of printout that comes, help is on the way. Somebody said help is on the way.
And we found that person. I can't remember who it is or whatever, but you can trace down all those things as to who intercepted, who got those messages and so forth. But anyway, so while this is going on, the planes, and I didn't know this, by the way, armored piercing bullets are coming into our space. They're coming down into our spaces underwater. So we can hear the bullets piercing the metal and so forth. So we're just there kind of waiting. Now, what do we do? What do we do? And we know there has to be massive carnage going on top of the ship. And we didn't have any idea that not only did they shoot us with the anti-personnel, then the armored piercing, and then with cannons, and then they napalmed us, okay? Napalm is a jelly gas that just burns everything. So, but back to me, back down in the hole with my shipmates down there. We're like saying, okay, what's going to happen? What's going on? We kind of know we're going to die. We just don't know when.
That's crazy. And again, this entire time at this point, you guys are thinking it's either the Egyptians or another Arab nation. Had it remotely even crossed your mind yet that this was the Israelis? Probably not.
No, not at all. Not at all. No. And so anyway, we are down there and then everything stops, just goes silent. And we're there for, and it turns out it was 20 minutes. And you just don't know how the clock is working, when you're in these
Yeah.
situations. And the captain says, and I'm sitting in my station and so forth, and our room had a bunch of electronic equipment in it. It filled up the walls and so forth. So anyway, the captain comes over the speaker and says, prepare for torpedo attack. And I looked at Jimmy, my buddy, who had already been injured because he got shot with one of those armored piercings that came through in the shower. When I was up topside, he was down in the shower. We were in that basket all day together. He'd already been hit with a bullet before he came down to our spaces.
Like literally a bullet pierced his body?
In the shower. He was in the shower in the first level. And and he was hit, but he came down to the spaces. And so he and I are sitting there, and he's not really talking about his injury or anything. He's I'm not going to say panicked. He's as stressed as any one of us are. It is somewhat panicking when you have no way to defend yourself.
Of course it is.
But
of course
anyway.
it is. And again, I have to say this. You guys are 20 years old at this
Correct.
point. 20, 21, 22, whatever.
With our officers who are in their mid-20s and so forth. Yeah. And
how old was the captain? And is that Captain
I'm going to guess he was in his mid.
Okay. Oh, God.
But
this is insane.
Anyway, I mean, young kids, 22, 23, 25, they had families. They had kids already. Everybody got married at 18 back then, not 40 like they are now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he said, prepare for torpedo attack. And I looked at Jimmy and I says, how the F do we do that? Nobody ever trained me in the Navy how to prepare for a torpedo attack. And I swear to you, I looked over and saw a little table over beside us over there. I says, why don't you and I lay down on the floor and wrap our arms around that table leg? He says, I don't know I guess we should bury our head. I guess we should whatever, but I'm going to lay down. And I don't know what led us to do that, but he and I laid down. And what I'm telling you now is that torpedo hit, and it hit within 25 feet of us, came through the side of the ship, came through a room, through two little paper thin walls, and into our space. And in that time, with 45 of us down there, it killed 25, with the impact of the explosion. And the rest of us I remember falling. So I thought the floor from underneath me, the deck, had blown away and I had fallen a whole nother level. But that's not the case. I was blown head first into the ceiling, into the pipes, and I was falling till the water caught me. And the water caught me, and it came down. Then the water kept filling up and filling up and filling up in the room, totally black. The oil tanks were hit down there, so the oil filled our water. So our water was black. You couldn't even, and we were underwater, so you got your eyes open, and you're trying to see, and all you can see is this murky stuff. And then I saw it got real dark in front of my eyes. And so I said, that must be somebody. So I reached out, and it happened to be my friend Jimmy's shirt. And I found out later I'd been unconscious, but everything is milliseconds. You think about it.
God.
It's all milliseconds. It's not.
Yeah.
It seems like an hour, but it's not. And then he and other people helped pull people totally. And there's only a foot of airspace to breathe, between the ceiling and the water level in there. All right. And so in that time that we're there, so the side of the ship, a little paper thin wall, the other side of the ship, and one ladder. This side of the ship is gone, 39 feet wide and 24 feet high hole. This wall is never to be found. And blew out holes in the other side of the ship.
And that was all from one torpedo.
That, by the way, was a French homing torpedo. And a homing torpedo is supposed to pierce the side of your ship, go completely in, then implode and explode and blow your ship in half, and it sinks. By the grace of God, by the hand of God, there was one I-beam on the side of the ship, a big, huge metal I-beam is one of the major struts to hold the ship together. Is where the torpedo head hit. So it exploded on impact. So even though there were 25 killed in that room, it saved 200 and some people, because
That's incredible.
The only intent was for us to be sunk that day. We were supposed to have never been heard of or seen or ever again. We were gone. And you'll find out more about that detail as I go on. But anyway, then I told you I grabbed Jimmy's shirt. But then we got up the ladder, went up the ladder to get out, and that hatch had the whole lift hatch, but it had a hole in it, a scuttle hole. And we were going out through that hole one at a time. And I remember a shipmate, Buddha, who was down there with us, must have been the first out, and he was pulling us all out of there. And so I say all the people killed. We had one survivor that got out of there, was really banged up bad, but he was smashed between doors or whatever and was spared probably from the frames of the doors versus, because think about it, everybody was still standing up or sitting around or whatever, not even thinking about a torpedo coming in. But I think because Jimmy and I laid down, now he got a lot of shrapnel on him. I did not. I was injured. I had my head injured from hitting the ceiling. I had concussions, and then I had a leg injury. And that I had little pieces of shrapnel in me, but nothing where they had to put me in a hospital and do that. So now we get out of this hole, and somebody has to shut that hole. And it wasn't me, but somebody had to close that hatch off.
Yeah.
And not know whether they were leaving live people down there or not.
Let me ask you something. How big is a torpedo? Is a torpedo like 6 feet? Like, what are the dimensions
I
of
think
that
a
thing?
torpedo was probably 20, 25 feet and like a manatee size. If you saw a big fat, manatee or whatever, probably something like that, but it's big.
It's big. And they fire that thing from a submarine? What do they fire that
That's
thing
where they
from?
normally do.
Okay.
Israel used torpedo boats. As a matter of fact, Israeli torpedo boats came out to do that attack. And we had no idea they were Israeli torpedo boats until they got really close. But they fired the torpedoes, and they fired like 4 torpedoes at us. Either they're bad shots or the captain maneuvered well, seeing them coming. But one hit us in the dead center of our ship, which caused all the casualties and caused us to go dead in the water. We could not go any further until we had some issues fixed where we could get under our own power and keep going. And the ship turned and listed at about 10 degrees or so. So, the ship was leaning like this. So, okay, I just got out of this hole. I just walked up, and the black smoke and the smell is something I can't explain to you. And then you're a young kid getting out of this, and some guy in front of you yells, "Chemical attack." And I say to myself, holy shit, I just lived down there.
Yeah.
Well, now I climbed out this hole. Now I'm going to die from mustard gas or something. What's that going to feel like? Then I go up on the deck to go up on the outside of deck, and all the ship's on fire. There's people laying out there, blood everywhere or whatever. So now, when are they going to come and finish me off? Okay, so that's what you're thinking about. Would you just hurry up and kill me? Because but when that torpedo hit that I-beam, that saved us.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. And then I go back to that ladder.
And by the way, when that torpedo hit the boat, and do you remember, that seems like it would have been so violent. Like, did the boat go in the air and slam on the water?
The ship actually probably left the water. And
it's insane. This is insane, Mo. This is insane. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And this is our ally. But before I go any further, I want to say that it's our ally. But I got to say, it was Israel. It was the Israeli Defense Forces. I've got tons of Jewish friends. I don't have any anti-Semitic blood in my body. And I think all the other Jewish people were out mowing lawns and sunbathing and doing everything that we would do that day as normal people, and had no clue they were attacking an American ship that day. And it turns out that more were involved than just the Israeli Defense Forces, which hopefully we'll get to a little later. But
I appreciate you saying that. And, I feel that exact same way about what's going on today. Like what's going on in the world today, whether it's Gaza or whether it's anywhere else. It's like, people need to really differentiate between the people of certain countries or anywhere, and then the governments and other entities. So I appreciate you saying that.
It could have been Somalia that attacked us.
Right.
It doesn't
exactly,
matter.
Exactly.
Somebody attacked us. Somebody killed 34 people. Somebody wounded 174 sailors with a total crew of 294 people. Think about that. That casualty rate is profound. I think it's one of the largest in history.
That is profound.
Which is still covered up today. But anyway, we get out of there, and then let's say the ship is on fire. And then the captain's yelling, people, come up to the bridge, help put out the fires, do whatever. We're standing down there. And then a helicopter. And I saw a guy named Birdman over there sitting under the water. He was just like a hole in his head from the bullets and everything. And I ran over to him. But then this helicopter comes and hangs over the ship and just right there. And he throws a paper bag off with an orange in it to put the weight in it with a message was sent up to the bridge to the captain. Do you have casualties? And they're looking out of their helicopter and the ship is covered in blood. Do you have casualties? Are you kidding me?
Wait, whose helicopter is this? Oh, it's Israel's. Okay.
We now feel we have proof that Moshe Dayan was actually in that plane relishing over his kill that day. The man was absolutely a brutal, brutal human being when it came to war.
You know who Mushi? I don't even know who that is. Who is that?
Right. Well, that's somebody that people should study because he would be like MacArthur in our military. He would be, like one of the biggest, what was his General Patton,
Wow. Okay.
Somebody of that type of rank. He was the like maybe it's Pete Hegseth is our secretary.
For the Israelis, he was like the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War,
right.
like he likes to call it now.
Right.
Wow, okay,
He wore a patch on his eye. He was quite a warrior. But anyway, they left. Matter of fact, when the message came on, the captain got it and he flipped him the bird and told him to get away. And from that minute on, we went under our own steam, very slowly, very carefully, and knew we had casualties underneath because we knew people didn't get out of the hole where our torpedo was. We were mending bodies. I carried this guy, Birdman, I sat down and I found out the mess decks where we ate what became our hospital. So every table and where we ate became a bed for all the wounded and so forth. And we took care. Then I remember for probably from dusk on till the next morning, sitting in that mess deck, helping save people's lives, doing whatever. We had one doctor on board, Dr. Kiefer, who had been shot up bad. He put life vests on and sewed himself up some and probably saved 100 lives. He should have gotten the Medal of Honor, but he didn't. And he kept a lot of them alive. I know that I had a guy that had 51 holes in him and I couldn't believe he was alive. And I held a straw in his mouth and I would suck out his gargle so he didn't drown, in his own gargle. So we did those type of things. You went over to our commanding officer who didn't last long, but he's laying on a table and he says to one of his crewmen that he knew better than me because he wasn't a CT, so he couldn't come in our spaces. But anyway, he says, go up to the stateroom and get me a bottle of vodka or whatever, bottle of bourbon, whatever, and bring it down to me. And he liked it. He liked his little mixers. But anyway, he's laying there bleeding to death, but he wants his bottle. And so can we help? He says, just get me my booze and leave me alone. Take care of the crew. Do not try to help me until you've taken care of the crew. So he's laid there and bled out and died. Hero. Because
by the way, so the entire attack, from what I remember in terms of some of Phil's interviews and other, started around 2 p.m. Do you remember, did it last for like 5 hours or?
No. 2 hours max.
2 hours max. Okay, got it.
Yes.
Oh my God. What do you think caused? I mean, they're trying to sink you guys. It's pretty obvious.
Yes.
They want that ship at the bottom of the ocean.
Well,
what do you think happened that caused them to, I guess, give up on that goal?
I'm curious how much time we have here because
we have as much time as you want, man.
So repeat your question.
My question is, so they absolutely wanted to sink that boat. They wanted to sink the Liberty without question.
To sink the boat so we would think it was Egypt and then do whatever else was going on. What's interesting, we're in the 3rd day, technically, of the 6-day war. What was there for us to come in and do against them? Because Israel wiped out the Egyptian military, their whole air force, in 1 day.
Wow. Okay.
Egypt had no way to defend themselves anymore. And we're there day 3 in a 6-day war, but yet, and we're planted. We're put in a place 13 miles off the thing that we're positioned there, and that's where we're supposed to sit. Okay? So probably when I get to some false flag issues, you'll understand.
Yeah, I
while
want to
we
get
were.
into the false flag stuff. Okay, so the attack is about 2 hours, and then you guys after that you're trying to mend to the injured. You're probably like, what the hell just happened? I mean, and I have to imagine part of you might have been like, is it over or are they going to come back? Like you probably had that fear probably that entire night.
Every second until we saw the Navy the next morning, and that goes back to my point earlier. Help is on the way. That's the
Okay.
one message we got back. Okay. So we sit there all night mending our wounded and so forth. And it's about 8:30 the next morning. And we on the horizon, we can see the ships coming. The fleet was about 460 miles from us. So they had a long ride to come. But anyway, in that time, right after the attack or during the attack, remember, one message goes out, one message comes back. Now, I'll tell you what happened in that time. The Saratoga, when they said help is on the way, they immediately loaded 4 jets with conventional weapons, meaning that's to protect us, come to our ship and help us out and do whatever they needed to do to protect us against who was shooting us. Admiral Martin on the American aircraft carrier, without authorization to do nuclear bombs, he didn't have that authorization, but loaded up 4 jets with nuclear warheads directly headed to Cairo, Egypt. Okay?
Wow. And again, at this point, here we are, 8:30 next morning, June 9th. You guys, do you still think it's Egypt or did you know it was Israel at that point?
We knew it was Israel because the torpedo boats had the Star of David on them.
Got it. Okay.
And there's even I'll go back to that real quick because they came in and when they shot thousands of rounds at us and for armored piercing and so forth, and then we even called an abandoned ship and we dropped our life rafts and Israel shot our life rafts out of the water. You're
They shot the
required by the
life
Geneva
rafts.
Convention.
Yeah.
You're required by all war crimes to take prisoners. But you don't take prisoners if the American flag's hanging, okay? Remember, we were supposed to split in half and sink and never be heard of again. They were probably just as panicked. Shit, now what do we do? So they were still determined for us to sink and go away.
So shooting the life rafts, I mean, that is a war crime. That is
Correct. And
absolutely a
I've been on a podium in Washington, D.C., and I personally read and filed the war crime to the Secretary of the Army and the Secretary of we now call him the Secretary of War. It was Rumsfeld at that time. Anyway, and we never heard a word from him. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself.
Okay. Yeah, let's go back to, so now we're June 9th. It's the ships are on the
The ships
horizon.
come up to the side of the ship.
Yeah.
And it's called the USS Davis, and they came and boarded, and they got on ship and helped us with medical stuff, helped us get some food on board and do it because nothing was cooking nothing was happening. Remember, the best deck was a hospital, so they got on board, and then the fleet came up, and the American aircraft carrier came up nearby, and then the American aircraft took helicopters and came up to the front of the ship, and I don't have the old terminology memorized anymore, but the forecastle, they called it, the forecastle. But anyway, and they carried on multiple trips, carried the injured off the ship onto the America. And then the America got filled to capacity. Their hospital could not take any more wounded. And there were 5 of us left on the ship that were wounded, but you have to take people off by their degree of injury. So my injury was not life-threatening. It was not in any way. Let's say I had a concussion. I had enough that they were concerned about me. So they sent 5 of us in that same situation over to the USS Little Rock, which was Admiral Martin's fleet ship. They had a guided missile cruiser, had a helicopter landing on it, and they flew us off in a helicopter and dropped us off there. And I spent the next 5 days on that ship. And now what I can say to the American public, I sat on a bed and Admiral Martin came into the room. He's the person out of his mouth said to us right there in that room, I loaded 4 planes with conventional and I loaded 4 planes with nuclear warheads headed to Cairo. We came within 6 to 9 minutes of bombing them if need be. In other words, Johnson would have had to call that to pull the trigger. Had we sunk, that would have happened. Russia was there waiting to get into it too. It would have been a potential nuclear holocaust. On
Nuclear
June 8th,
holocaust.
June 8th, this world came within 9 minutes of a potential nuclear holocaust. And the world doesn't even know about the USS Liberty, let alone that. They don't know any of this story.
That's it. That's incredible. And let me pause on that for a second because this is important. Literally, the world barely knew about the USS Liberty until the past year. And now what you're talking about is another level of knowledge that nobody knew, that we were 9 minutes away from a nuclear holocaust. It's
Right.
insane. This is insane. This story just gets crazier and crazier and honestly scarier and scarier as to what was diabolically being intended to happen. Because had you guys sunk, had it not been for that I-beam, you
Yes.
probably would have sunk.
Right.
And they would have gone nuclear on Egypt. I'm assuming Russia would have came to the defense of Egypt then,
I
right?
think they would have wiped Israel off the map.
Interesting. Russia would have. Okay. All right. I'm going to leave that one alone. But
Yeah.
okay. Wow. Oh my God, Mo, this is awesome. This is like a totally different, you know, what's crazy? You and Phil were on the same ship and you've got like completely different, not even versions, but different aspects of this.
Right. And I say, I was there. I wasn't up doing all that stuff, but I was doing my job
Yeah.
and took a torpedo. I had to lay down there and be one of the 20 survivors
Yeah.
of 45 people and live with that the rest of my life when I watched my buddy, who's 7 feet from me, blown to smithereens, and he's got 2 babies at home. And I'm single, but I'll tell you why I was spared. I know why I was spared. My brother had died the year before in January of 66. This is June of 67. And I was spared for my mother not to lose 2 kids in a year. That's what I believe.
Okay, I love that. I love that you believe that. And you know what? I'll believe that as well. Let me ask you this. Did Jimmy survive?
He did.
He did.
As a
Okay.
matter of fact, coincidentally, he's my neighbor 3 blocks down the street here in South Carolina right now. So
Well, that's amazing.
our,
That
our
is
sea
amazing.
stories get bigger every day.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
just bullshit the world.
It's like the movie, what is that movie? Big Fish, where the stories just keep getting bigger and bigger
Yeah.
and bigger. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, that is really cool that you and Jimmy live so close
Yeah.
to each other. That's interesting. But you had friends that day. I mean, that's hard,
A
man.
lot of friends. I mean, I had a lot of friends. I mean, when you say
Hard.
34 total, but I knew everybody kind of personally, except I didn't know Lieutenant Toth. But God, what a mess. And up topside, you think that when everybody ran inside, like I ran down to my spaces underwater, but they ran inside to get out of harm's way. Now they're inside of a metal room up on the top side of the ship, feeling safe. And most of the harm, even the major wounds, were done because of the shrapnel. And the shrapnel would come through the side of the ship with a 3-inch hole or whatever. And then the metal particles would just wipe out people, just fill them with holes. I mean, I counted 54 holes in this one guy.
That's it. Did
And
that guy
and I don't know if
survive,
he's
or did
alive
he?
today, but I know he lived. He lived with he had 2 20 millimeters in his head. They went through his head completely, and he still lived, and he could talk, but with broken speech
Okay.
after that.
Okay.
But I have no idea if he's still a survivor
Okay.
or
Okay.
not.
Got it. Okay, let me ask you this, man. This is incredible. Okay, let's talk about kind of what happened over the next maybe week. Like where did they take your ship from there? And then did they tell you guys, like, I'm trying to think how to ask this. Like I know there was a huge cover up, obviously, because I know the story now, but I'm curious how that played out. Like, did they take you somewhere and then say, hey, don't ever talk about this, or, what, talk.
So I went I told you, the Little Rock. And after 5 days, our ship was headed toward Malta
Okay,
to go
Malta.
to dry dock to be repaired or whatever they were going to do in dry dock to get the bodies out. And I flew back to Crete there at Greece, or right there near Malta. And they said, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Like, you want to go home? It's just, I want to go back to my ship. I want
Gosh.
to be with my ship. So they took me back to the ship. And when I got on the ship, Ron Kukul and his team and all the spaces, they only allowed the top secret people to go back down in their spaces even after the torpedo hit. They wouldn't allow a Phil Turney down there ever. They wouldn't allow any of those people to ever come down there. And even though it was blown to smithereens. But anyway, we were at sea 8 days getting back to Malta,
Okay.
just churning in the water with 25 bodies churning in the water inside the ship, rotting, decaying, and doing whatever for that 8 days.
Oh my God, those bodies. So those bodies are like what? Just in the area that torpedo hit.
Either stuck between two cabinets or either whatever, wherever they were, furniture fell on them, whatever happened or whatever, but they're in there, maybe
Could
floating
you
around.
see them? Could you see them or
No,
no?
no. Remember the ship was battened down. You couldn't go
Battened
in
down.
anymore.
Okay. Got it.
No, because all that water was still in there.
Okay.
They went all the way that 8 days with all the water still inside half the ship.
Got it. So it's almost like for us non-Navy people, when you guys say batten down the hatches and batten
Yeah.
down, it's almost like you're boxing it closed and isolating it.
You're boxing anything that can harm you.
Okay.
So we didn't want that water to go to another part of the ship or whatever. So anyway, Ron and his team, Larry Bowen and a few of them, they're cleaning out. Think about this. And I went back that day and I went down in the hole too, but they had already cleaned out most of the bodies, the body bags and so forth. But they found, of course, they only identified one person by their features or anything because they were so decayed and so blown to pieces. They found belt buckles and they found whatever that had their name on them is how they identified. So there was a documentary that came out and called Sacrificing Liberty. And Ron Kukul, our shipmate on there, his section in that documentary talks about putting a puzzle together. It was like putting a puzzle. He says, I had to take body parts and put them all together on the ship to try to create a body. And that's what we had. Those guys stayed there a couple of days and did all that and left. I stayed there 31 days and cleaning out that space and cleaning out body parts. The last day I found Captain Pierce or Lieutenant Pierce's arm in an air conditioning vent. Okay.
Oh my.
30 days later. Okay. I'll tell you something else is fascinating. My brother, I told you, had died. I had his class ring. Okay. And the implosion of the ship and all that stuff had happened, the big, huge electronic gear. At one point, we started tearing all that electronic gear apart to see. And inside that those boxes that were still perfectly in shape, we took them apart. We found eyeglasses. We found rings. We found all kinds of stuff, bracelets and whatever inside those machines. So that means those machines had imploded enough to go, and then the blast blowing the stuff off your body, okay, went into those machines. And I found my brother's class ring because it had blown off my hand during the attack.
God.
What are the odds on that?
That is incredible. Wow.
Yeah. So, God works in mysterious ways. And by the way, I haven't said it yet, but this whole thing for us that are alive and is divine intervention. We were in God's hands that day and didn't sink. And that's what caused all the trouble after that, because had we sunk, this would have gone away in a week. And there's these guys, they're gone. Some submarine sunk and 36 guys went down. Goodbye, see you later. And you never heard about them again, and that's what would have happened. But then when we got in Malta, they had they called it a inquiry, board of inquiry. And by the way, that's the only inquiry that's ever been done in history. And it lasted a few days. And they swore everybody to secrecy. They took us like Admiral Kidd and Isaacs and John McCain Jr. He wasn't there, but yet, it might have been Senior. Senior was there.
McCain's dad. Yeah. I remember reading
he was. But anyway, they came on, and Phil will tell you an experience that he had, that they took their bars off, their admiral's bars, and says, okay, we're just normal people. We want to talk. So then the guys told their stories, and I was not involved in that conversation. Okay. But they told us, all of us, because I got the exact same instructions. If you ever talk about this attack, even to the guys who did not have a top secret clearance, but if you ever talk about this, We're going to send you to Leavenworth. We're going to send you to wherever, and you don't know what's going to happen. So I'm going to say the majority of us went 15 years without saying a word. I didn't say a word to my first wife. I didn't say anything to my parents, nothing. If I talk to you, I'll have to shoot you, you know? So,
My God. So
and
when
so
you
we were
when
sworn to
you got
secrecy.
back to America finally, you didn't tell your parents this? You didn't
I
tell
didn't tell them anything of what happened other than we were attacked. That's it.
and you know, everyone needs to remember this is 1967. There's no internet. There's no
Correct.
cell phones. There's no social media. There's no, I mean, and I bet you the TV news wasn't really covering it. Okay, let me ask you this. I mean, case of mistaken identity. That was the official story.
Still is.
Still is the official story. There's no chance of that.
No chance. I watched an old video last night that I pulled out of the archives. It's on our website of them honoring Admiral Moore, who was the commandant of the Navy then and the whole Navy. I forget his title. But anyway, we honored him, and he just said that he knew that was a deliberate attack at the time. But the government swore us to secrecy, and he's always stood out for us all the way there. And so, when I went back on the ship, and I said I stayed that whole time with him, it was time if I wanted to communicate with my family, you had to write a letter then or whatever, but I couldn't say anything. But even back when I went back to my normal life in that 15 years, remember, I was injured. I had bad issues that were going on and so forth, but I was afraid to go to a doctor. And the military wasn't helping me with anything, never contacted me. As a matter of fact, they sent me one letter. Would you accept $500 if you swear to never say anything in the world? And we'll send you a settlement check for $500. So you'll never blame Israel or anything for whatever. And my stepfather says, yeah, you'd be lucky to get that, sign it. And my buddy Jimmy refused to sign it, and they sent him $47,000. So you just didn't know.
$47,000?
Yeah, so that's the same Navy that I belong to. Because he refused to sign the release, they sent him 47 to shut him up. But anyway, and he's the guy that's in that Al Jazeera video you like.
Yeah. Okay, got
He's
it.
in a yellow golf shirt, Jimmy Cavanaugh, that James Scott, author, was who kind of made that documentary.
That's a great documentary as well.
Yeah.
So is the Sacrificing Liberty. I think Rick
Yes.
Wiles was responsible for that. That's a 4-hour, I think a 4-hour documentary in 4 different parts. It's long, but man, it's good. It's good.
I'd like to tell your audience that there is a documentary. You can go on Rumble and search for Sacrificing Liberty. It is a 4.5 hour. It's in 4 separate sections, like a Netflix documentary. It's actually done that well. It's never made the public media because of the cover up. Okay. And so we will never get the exposure that we should. But this documentary is from our crew. It tells a powerful story, and it also takes you through to the last segment of the story, which I'll kind of jump to right now, is after surviving all this and going through it and living all these years. And I'm the executive director of our Liberty Veterans Association. So I'm very connected to the crew all the time. My dear shipmate and good friend, Phil Turney, who's our president of our organization, has lived and breathed the USS Liberty his entire life. He is the finest spokesman we have, and he fights every day. I've run a business. I've had my own life. I've had whatever, but I've always stayed very close to the Liberty.
Yeah.
And and also it's been a hardship because of my wife, and she's very volunteers to help. But we live and breathe this. It took me 56 years to get benefits from the government for my injuries and for my whatever. And by the way, I told you I had what were considered minor injuries. I've had 12 back operations, 9 fusions in my back from hitting that ceiling in that ship with that torpedo. Think of the impact of a torpedo that lifted the ship out of the water. How fast was I going to that ceiling?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
The
And
second that hit,
how hard did you
did I hit?
slam onto that?
Did the guys hit? Hey, you think of the guys that were closer to the impact of that torpedo, they didn't have any idea what hit. But I'm less than 25 feet and survived. And it's just profound. But
Mo,
yes,
this is incredible.
I
This
want to
is
tell you, I'm jumping around a little bit, but I want to tell
yeah,
you too, the cover up.
okay.
And it's still the largest cover up today in the history of our government. If you write to your senator or congressman, you will get a form letter back that says the USS Liberty has been investigated. It was proven to be accidental, and that's it. No more, nothing. So our mission today. Why am I here? Why am I here with Ray doing this podcast? It's to tell our story. All we want is to tell our story. Our greatest goal in life would be for our government to give us a true congressional hearing
Yeah,
to prove that this was not an accident, that it was deliberate. We're
yeah.
not asking for compensation. We're not asking for anything. We certainly live by donations that people provide for us. But, and I'll just say ussliberty.org, O-R-G, ussliberty.org is our website. We're in the process of bringing that up to date. We're going to have a really exclusive site coming up. And we're going to also be reaching out much more in the social media category to reach people like yourselves.
That's
And
amazing.
I ask each of you to go tell your neighbor, I heard this guy.
Yeah,
And I
that's
want you to
amazing.
go watch Ray's Deep Shallow Dive podcast and see this. And there's at least 2 crewmen on his podcast, now myself and Phil Turney.
You know what? You know what? Listen, first of all, I'll put all those links in the show notes. I want people to go to ussliberty.org, donate. Absolutely. That's great to hear you guys have a new site coming and all that stuff. That's exciting. I will tell you the USS Liberty, and I don't know how much you keep up on social media, but man, it is at a focal point for a lot of people. And I'll tell you who is really supportive of you guys. It's Gen Z. These young kids are absolutely understanding what took place that day. And quite frankly, they are championing your cause. So, I don't know if you see these Turning Point USA events, it
Yes.
started with Glenn Beck at, I think, the University of North Dakota, or one of those places. And I had the young guy who stood up and asked Glenn Beck, hey, why are we ignoring the story of the USS Liberty? His name was Jeb Baugh. I had him on the podcast and it was great. He grilled Glenn Beck. And then a week later, Eric and Laura Trump, they got grilled at another university.
I saw that.
Gen Z, millennials, even Gen X, people are waking up and learning about the USS Liberty. And I'll tell you, it's because of, obviously, Phil Turney's episode on Candace Owens. I think that sparked everything. But I love that you're coming forward now. Maybe there's other shipmates of yours that I could bring on. And what we should do is, I'd love to do a panel discussion with you guys. Maybe have you, Phil, maybe 1 or 2 other guys, and really kind of have an overall discussion, because people need to know this story. This is an unbelievably important story in the history of the United States, and it's one of the worst cover-ups we've ever had, and
Yeah.
people need to know the truth.
Well, I can't leave this without another comment that I had too on the back end of all this as the story progressed on to later times with Lyndon Johnson. But we actually have Lyndon Johnson on tape saying, let the son of a bitch sink. I will not jeopardize my relationship with Israel. That was during the time we didn't know who had attacked us. We did not know we were under attack by Israel. And Lyndon Johnson said Israel on his points he was making. So that
Yeah.
proves that he and McNamara were in on the attack. And it goes to false flags. I told you we were sitting ducks in the Sinai Peninsula. We were positioned there, told not to move. So we were sitting there for America, believe it or not, and Israel combined to sink our ship, to kill 294 sailors and get away with it, and then go in and nuke
Egypt.
So that's what you all need to understand, what we dealt with then. You think our world is screwed up right now? It's never going to change. That's the way it is. But I'm telling you that we need your support to pass our story on. That's all, just to help us get the story told. And
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
honored to be here and be able to talk to your
Well,
viewers.
listen,
And
Mo,
that you,
I thoroughly appreciate this. I mean, my episode with Phil was great. This is equally as great. And it's so interesting to hear the same day from two different perspectives. And I'll tell you what, I truly think that, I've got some resources I'm going to put into play on this. You guys need a congressional hearing. You need your day in court, so to speak, and an investigation, a hearing, whatever they call it. The bottom line is we've got to enroll guys like Thomas Massey on the Republican side, somebody like a Ro Khanna on the Democrat side. I'm going to reach out to these guys because somebody needs to champion this, and you guys need a chance to sit in front of the Congress of the United States and the American people and, quite frankly, tell your story about that day and let the American people decide who's really at fault and, quite frankly, get some justice for you guys. Oh my God, this is insane.
I used to sit at my country club in Atlanta, Georgia. I was blessed to be a member there for 32 years. But my dear friend who I sat on the porch with all the time was Johnny Isaacson, who was a United States Senator for the state of Georgia. And never politically did much with him, except I made sure he knew about the Liberty. I got a book by James Scott signed personally for him. We didn't have the documentaries at that time, but he said he read the book. And then he sent me, I asked him, I says, I'm not asking you to do anything because I know you're the head of the Israeli lobby, but I'm only asking you as my senator and as a veteran to help me get through the bureaucracy and get my benefits from the military. So he sent me over to a girl at his office. I never heard another word. I sat there and probably had 20 more times with him having cocktails and shooting the bull. And I chose to never address it again with him. And he's still my friend, but he was afraid for his career as a United States Senator.
Yeah.
To stir anything that was the cover up. And that's what we're dealing with. I mean,
No, that is what we're dealing with. But you know what? I think slowly but surely with everything that's gone on, and quite frankly, a lot of it has to do with what's taken place in Gaza over the past 2 years.
absolutely.
They opened up Pandora's box and it is not closing. It is not closing. And I'll tell you what's in Pandora's box. The USS Liberty's in Pandora's box. The JFK assassination's in Pandora's box. 9/11 is in Pandora's box. The moon landing's in Pandora's box. And I'm telling you, we are going to rally this Gen Z, this group of young kids. These kids are after the truth and they don't have the baggage that the older generations do. And I mean, knock on wood, I am really praying that you guys get your due because you deserve it, man. I don't know how you've lived with this. Like, gosh, I hate to even ask this question, but I'm going to. Has anybody committed suicide or has anybody just not been able to deal?
Yes, recently. And I'm not going to say who the crew member is,
Okay.
but
Okay.
yes, and one of the dearest humans I've ever known in my life. And yes, and I'm sure it's happened more than once. And but it's taken a toll on people like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's destroyed people with the PTSD. Again, I've been blessed, I think, because I was able to talk about it. I get riled up today, but I'm able to talk about it. I have so many Vietnam friends that were boiled up and could never, ever talk about it. And it ended up destroying them completely because I think you need to release. And so I'm a fighter. I want somebody to sweat through these times that are coming. And I love it. These kids are asking all the questions and they want to know the truth. And by the way, when that guy asked Laura Trump and what's his name, the other son?
Eric
He
Trump. Yeah.
asked Eric they're sitting on the stage and he asked him about the USS Liberty. And I'm watching this and I said to myself, Eric Trump has never heard the word USS Liberty in his life.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
the president's son and certainly not his wife. So how could they even possibly address that question. I mean, but people are asking, and the podcasts are helping us. Candace Owens has been a blessing to us.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
know
she
who's been
really has.
really the blessing to us, who gets a wrath of crap, is Phil Turney, because
Yeah,
he's made a lot of enemies over the years. He's got different people in the crew but he is I'll say our angel, who is relegated to himself, committed himself
yeah,
to never stop talking about this and looking for the truth. The same thing I'm looking for. But I
yeah,
get to spout all
absolutely.
my stuff in this 1 hour, and then I get to go play golf tomorrow. But,
No, Phil's a beast. Phil's a beast. Him and I have
yeah,
gotten to know each other since I had him on the
yeah,
podcast. And you know what? I actually love the combination of you and Phil, because you guys do provide people with two different perspectives. And honestly, I think with the fact that Phil's been so vocal and so out front of everything, there are people that are like, oh, that's just one guy's opinion. Well, now, you know what? They're hearing Moe Shafer on the Deep Shallow Dive. There might be other people on the Deep Shallow Dive. And then you guys collectively, maybe we'll try to get the two of you on Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or Pierce Morgan. We got to get you guys on Pierce Morgan,
I would
Joe
love, I mean,
Rogan, all these
I think
guys.
Joe Rogan, I think it gives you 3 hours. We could tell a hell of a story.
There you go. You could tell a hell of a story. All right, listen, you and I could go on for 3 hours,
Yeah,
but why don't we cut it here,
yeah.
because I don't have that Joe Rogan audience yet. Is there anything else you want to say to people? I mean, and
You
before
know,
you do, because I'm going to give you the
I,
last word.
I don't. I ask for you, all you listeners in your audience. God bless you. I ask you to pray for us. I ask you, even though this is 58 years ago, to pray for us. Pray for those who still suffer from the
Yeah.
wounds.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
also try to do your part to help spread the word about our story. If you believe this today and are upset as we are, I ask you to go to ussliberty.org, visit our site, and also I ask you to go to Rumble and watch any part or any piece of the
Yeah.
Sacrificing Liberty documentary. You'll be overwhelmed, because there's a different story from every person with the exact same ending. We were
Yeah.
deliberately attacked. We were to be murdered, which they got 34 of us. They wounded 174, maimed them, blew holes all over them. But we're survivors. And thank you. Thank you, Ray. Thank you so much, Ray.
Moe, thank you so much. This has been a genuine pleasure. And honestly, I'm gonna get you and Phil back on. I'd like to do a more in-depth dive on this thing. Oh my God, it makes me so mad. I can't even fathom how you guys have felt, not only now, but over the past 57, 58 years. But you know what? We're going to get you guys your due. We're going to get you guys your due. This is something that's close to my heart. So I'm absolutely going to be somebody that puts his effort towards it. So, all right, hang on the line, Moe. All right, listen, everybody. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. This honestly was one of the deepest, most raw episodes I think I've done. And I know I say this about a lot of my episodes, but man, this one really hit me hard. So, Moe, I appreciate it. Call a spade a spade. Call your
Thank you.
parents, everybody, and hang on the line, Moe, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Want the full truth? Watch the full Deep Shallow Dive interview next. And hit subscribe if you're done with narratives and ready to call a spade a spade.